Where did we go wrong?
We were cool hairstylists that rocked at doing hair. And we thought, I'm going to open a business and I'm going to do it better than my owner and I'm going to treat people better and I'm going to pay people better. And then we took 2 to 5 people, started our business and offered them a higher pay. The next group did the same thing. And then the next group did the same thing. And now the expectation of what people could get got higher. And then it became a standard. And now that it's a standard, everybody is terrified to pay lower because they think that the people will leave to somewhere else.
If we're not talking about the past and not trying to better the present to make a better future, we're all just going to be continuously running in that hamster wheel.
Do you have a forecast as to where things are going to be?
You know, everybody right now is rethinking their whole life. I think it's going to force owners to operate like business people. You know, there's no more faking it, just having a busy looking, sexy looking salon. I'm Kaylee Auger. I've been in the industry for a very long time. I started skipping high school to go wash hair at the salon, so that gives you an idea of where I started. And I spent the first decade working with clients, so doing hair behind the chair. And then I wanted to progress to owning a salon. And so then I transitioned to working with teams. And now I'm really passionate about working with salon owners. So kind of going into the third decade, shifting into working with owners.
What was your first salon makeover like?
As a coach?
Yeah.
Nobody was really doing the financial side. So I thought, okay, I'm going to start with the financial side because I really love it. And I think it really helps people. And my first client, when we did her cash flow projection, she was on track to lose $50,000 that year.
Wow.
And by going in and tweaking the plan, little changes in every area, she ended up being up 20 by the end of the year. So it was a $70,000 swing. And and that's just, what I'm passionate about is seeing results. And that's what I love about numbers is they don't lie to you and you can see, a tangible payback.
There's a lot of coaching type of systems out there. Do you make it more simple for salon owners? Do you have a more simplified system? Are you more engaged with them?
I have a process that I use that really works, and I have an online course. And so what I was finding is it's really fun. I teach live courses too, and that's how I met Franco.
Well, that's right. I was just going to say that's how.
Right, and we had so much fun that day, right? I still remember we had a great day, and it's fun. But then they go home, and I go home, and it's over. And so with the coaching, it's that ongoing relationship, and it's also with the online resources, you can go in and rewatch it. So if there's a concept that didn't quite sink in, that you need to hear it again, you can go over and over and over at your own pace. So I really love the tools that I can give people to support them because it's an ongoing relationship rather than just a one-time weekend thing that you have to try to figure out what to do with all the information after.
I came into this business course that you were offering through, I think it was L'Oreal at the time, right?
Yeah, that's right.
And I was one of the only chair rental salons, of course, in your class. At first I was like, oh my God, I don't know if I should message her because, I paid for this class. But then I messaged you and it was 10 minutes later, you're like, oh my God, do you want to just talk on the phone? And I'm like, what? Is this actually happening right now? I have somebody that's not only a coach, but like a mentor and a friend. And we aren't the smartest with numbers. We're more creative. And it's really nice to have people like yourself that are willing to step back from the chair and actually step into a different role and actually engage in that way. I was one of those people that, when we were talking about my numbers and my situation with my business, it was like, I thought I was X number and it was a Y number. And I was like, whoa, I got to readjust everything that I've been doing because I think a lot of chair rental salon owners think we know the numbers. And then once we open and we get those 3, 4, 6, 9 months down the road, we realize, oh, maybe my numbers weren't right. Because, we're thinking of the rent or how much we spend in the beginning months, but we don't think about how much we spend at the end of the year, divided that. So it was a really excellent experience for me. And that's why I was excited to bring you and join us on the Hair Fellas, because I think it is going to teach a lot of people about not only who you are, but what you can offer and what you've offered me already in my 8 years of business.
I love that you said that, Franco. And the funny thing about it is that was me too. right? Like I skipped high school. I'm not a math whiz in any sense. And that's what I keep trying to tell people, salon owners, is you don't have to do math. Like we have spreadsheets for that. We have calculators for that. Like this is not math we're talking about. And this is actually the artistic side of numbers, because we're actually bringing the numbers to life to tell you a story about your business. And then it's kind of like investigative work where you're like, oh, why is that number high? I'm going to figure it out. And so for me, my whole thing is like falling in love with your numbers. Like, let's not make it this really painful thing. Let's make it more this challenge of like figuring out what's going on in your business and a little bit of detective work. So I'm so glad that it helped you, Franco. And I'm so glad that we've continued the relationship. And that's what the coaching's all about, is continuing that initial relationship. And I love what you said about, bringing the salon vibe to the numbers, because that's exactly, I was always so passionate about my clients, my team, and I'm the same about my salon owners. I just want to see them succeed and, push them up and help them to skip the painful mistakes that I made, right? Like, I already did it. You don't need to do it too.
Well, if maybe correct me if I'm wrong, but it took you several years to actually realize your mistakes, like, right? It was like several years, right? And you were like, what's going on? And it almost kind of like it punched you in the face. It wasn't like something.
It punched me in the face.
Yeah, right? I remember.
Yeah, well, I was like everybody else, working, busting behind the chair, right? 6 days a week behind the chair doing my own clients. I was having a blast and there was lots of money coming in. And so I thought my business was doing well. I thought cash in the bank equaled a successful business. And what I didn't know, which is what I got punched in the face with, was when I got pregnant and had my first daughter and decided to go to France, because I'm like, oh, my business is great. It's so awesome. And my first payroll while I was in France bounced. And that was the punch in the face, because I was like, what the heck? So
because you were looking at your numbers.
I was the payroll. And I keep telling people, like, you're paying people to work for you. And they're like, yeah, of course, like, if you want someone to work for you, you have to pay them. But no, like, you're literally like paying them with your paycheck. Like, that's what's happening, right? It's because if you take you out of your business and the payroll bounces, it means that the money you were earning for yourself is actually going into their paycheck too. And so what's kind of funny is some of my salons right now with this COVID-19 that are closed and are able to keep a great retail business, some of them might end up making more money.
Well, no overhead of staff, right?
Because they're not overpaying staff and sucking them dry, with that overpayment. So it's going to be really interesting to see, because some of them already were quite close to their break even just with a couple weeks of retail.
A lot of the big commission salons and the people that have fully booked stylists and stuff, I feel like sometimes the support staff for those busy stylists actually makes it cost more than a junior stylist, because one successful stylist that is fully booked is utilizing 2, 3, 4 support staff throughout the whole week. And who's paying that support staff? It's the business owner, the salon owner. So the money that they're saving is literally both ends of the spectrum of paying the stylist, but also having that support staff to support that stylist. And it's really funny, because I think restaurants and hair salons are really finding that the overhead is what really is costing them. And I think a lot of restaurants are going to come out of this looking at the same thing, being like, okay, I didn't have any of my servers. I only had my cooks. The servers make all the money and the cooks are the ones that work the hardest. And now they're realizing, hey, maybe there's a shift. So I think a lot of industries with COVID we're all going to have to really analyze the situation today.
Yeah, well, and this is, for me, really exciting times in our industry. And I know it sounds weird to say that, but it's giving everyone a chance to reset their business, and it's giving them a chance to rethink their business. And now they can come back stronger, and they can come back with a business plan that works, right? And, it's not, I could have kept doing what I was doing for 10 years because I was too scared to change, and I would have been in the same boat. And so, it takes courage to change. And this is giving everybody a great opportunity, because change brings on more change and people are expecting change. So I think this is a great opportunity for everyone to rethink their business and decide, what changes am I going to make? And it really, to me, starts with your numbers, because that's where you've got these like red flags blinking at you, saying like, I need your attention right here. And you can see where you actually need the changes.
What do you think salons need to be doing right now?
2 things that they need to be focused on, and that is their relationships and their cash flow. Now's the time to really foster your relationships with your team, with your clients, with your community, with neighboring businesses. I remember when I owned Hype, we were always like, oh, we need to go talk to that yoga studio, or we need to do this. And, it always felt like, you'd make that first contact, but then who was going to pick up the pieces to keep the relationship going because everyone was so busy. So, now's the time that you can start making some of these strategic alliances in your community for when you do reopen. And then the second is cash flow. And actually, because we're here at my, this is off-grid property, we have to collect water from the rain.
Oh.
And so when we first bought the property, it was already past the rainy season, believe it or not, in Vancouver. We do have a lull in a rainy season.
Yeah.
And so we had no water, right? And so we had to decide, we had to last here all summer with not very much water. And so what did we do? We assessed how much water we had first. And then we did a water budget. We found out how much does it take to have a shower? How much does it take to wash the dishes?
I love it.
Wow.
And then we were like, okay, so this is how much we have. If we were to continue living normally, normal water usage, we would last a month. But we reduced, instead it was the quick get wet, shut the water off, soap up, some little changes that we did to make us last. We lasted the entire summer. We still had water to spare.
I do that with ice cream. That have to make sure it lasts the rest of the week.
You ration out your ice cream. I love it. So that's what salons need to do with their cash right now, is they need to, first and foremost, they need to know where they are exactly. They need to have one area where they have all of their expenses, all of their debts, all of the payments that are coming out. And then they need to start looking ahead. Now, if my husband and I didn't do that and we didn't even think about it, a month later, we would have been like, crap, we have nowhere to live and we have no water. How do you live without water? It's it's not that cool, right?
No.
And so, and that's where salons are at with their cash. If you don't look at it, then you can't do anything to change it. And so if you do look at it, then you can make all these little tiny changes that don't change your life that much, but can make you sustain way longer. And so right now we need to just try to sustain as long as we can, because if we had a date, we could figure out exactly the numbers, but we don't have a date. So we just have to go lean. We have to go lean, right? And it's like getting the last 5 pounds at the gym, right? It's like when you're working off the beginning part of the weight, it kind of sheds off and then you're going to get stuck. And it's the same thing with your finances now is, you've asked your landlord to cut your rent. You've asked a few things, but now go through it again, and try to go lean. And we need to shed every little pound that is not essential right now. And so we're conserving that cash flow as long as possible until we open up again.
Do you have a forecast as to where things are going to be here in the Lower Mainland when this thing is all over?
I think it's going to shift. I think, everybody right now is rethinking their whole life. And so, it's inevitable that it's going to shift, but I think it's going to be positive shifts because I think it's going to force owners to operate like business people. And that's going to be positive for our industry. So there's no more, there's no more faking it, just having a busy looking, sexy looking salon from the outside with 5 support apprentices to 1 stylist. No, they're going to have to take a hard look at it, which is going to force us to evolve into a better business model. And that's really cool. That's just, my career path was going like this. I started out as an apprentice, stylist, a teacher, international platform artist, educator, salon owner.
You've done everything. I love it.
It was this uphill career path. And then salon owner, it tanked, right? It was the lowest point of my life. It was the hardest point of my life. And I was it's not supposed to be like this. It's supposed to keep going up.
And I find it interesting how, the hair world, the hair industry has been around for thousands of years, let's say, but as a business, let's call it 100 years. And I feel we're constantly telling our clients always you have to change your look, you have to change your appearance. We have to, we're always looking for them to recreate themselves. But when you look at our past as an industry, we haven't recreated our own selves or our industry and the way we pay and the way our businesses are structured in over 100 years. I think the biggest drastic change was maybe at the Sassoon age of when we started departmentalizing the industry, and then that started creating the experience of a salon brand that people started coming into the salon. And I feel right now we're really seeing how many people go to stylists in salons and clients that go to salons for stylists. So I'm finding that it's becoming a little bit more like you said, we're being forced to recreate the way we operate business, because what we've been doing in the past has proven not to help or be like not profitable for all of us. Like even you look at the percentage of the salons that are actually profitable and how much their profitability is. It's like you end up looking back and think like, is this even worth it? Like, is this shit worth it? Like how often we have to go in on, the 10 to 13, 14, 15 hour days and then go home and still do work. You end up looking at it and being like, is it worth it? But then, who we are, we're such, people like pleasers that we always make it worth it because of who we are. And it's interesting to see how something like this is going to force us to make big changes. Yeah. And I love that you said that it's going to readjust, and just showcase or show who's actually prepared and who's done the due diligence of being prepared for this. And even if it's not even like mentally prepared, but it's like structurally prepared to make changes quickly.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and one of the things that we have to think about too is we say go back 100 years, like just go back 30 years. Yeah. We didn't pay for, like when I started, I was writing my appointments in a paper book, right? Sure. And so we've added all these additional expenses to our business without adjusting the model. And so maybe our business even worked 50 years ago with the 50-50 model, but we never adapted to, now we pay for websites, now we pay for social media people, now we pay for the latest software instead of a $20 paper book. And now we have a lot more support staff than we used to have because the experience is so important. And where did all that money come from? Our rents are higher, all the expenses went up and we never changed the model. So you've got it like dead on there of, it's time for a change.
This is kind of the reset that you were referring to. This is going to be something for everybody to clean house, reevaluate everything, and possibly look at starting a whole new business model with what you were referring to. So it's kind of exciting in a way.
It is exciting. Yeah.
I know for me, like personally, I'm reevaluating my situation, my shop, because of the situation is like, it does expose your weakness for sure. And, I have a different situation than most salon owners. And, even though a lot of times I think, oh, maybe I'm ahead, but there's no such thing as being ahead right now. Like realistically, nobody's ahead. We're all on the same equal playing field. And it's the first time in my career that all salons are on the same equal playing field. And it's bringing us closer together because we're all experiencing the same thing. And I feel like this is literally going to see something evolve out of this, that it's going to be difficult for a majority of the stylists and salon owners because most of us don't like to see uncontrolled change. We like to see gradual change in our business, but then we want to see our clients extreme changes and extreme makeovers. So we're finally having to readjust everything.
Yeah, I love that analogy, Franco. That's awesome because it's true. Like we're like, oh, do something different. Like, or like, oh, it's so boring. They just want to trim every time. But yeah, when you look at your business that way, like, what are you willing to change?
We're only willing to trim the fat. Like the first thing we look at budget, it's like, okay, let's maybe cheapen the coffee, or let's get rid of some of the magazines. And it's like, what is that going to do to your business? Like,
yeah.
What are some common areas in a salon business that you have come across where people fell short? Was it overusing color? Was it?
There's three main areas. So there's your payroll to your stylists. And sorry, stylists, if you're listening here, it's not like I'm not against you and I'm not against your, like, it's not about your owner cutting your pay. What I want is a win-win for everyone. Right now, you've got a big piece of a small pie and it's just not sustainable. And so we need to get you a smaller piece of a bigger pie. So we need to teach the owners to grow the pie and slice it up a little more evenly. And then you still get to eat as much pie, right? At the end of the day. And so that's what it's all about. I'm not here just like against stylists, but I don't know another industry that payroll is so high. Like there's just, it doesn't exist in any other industry. Not even in like the skincare industry, like not even in the aesthetic studios. When I went to my personal trainer, and I was like, I pay like what, $100 for the workout, 120 maybe. He went to school for 6 years to become a kinesiologist. And I said, how much do you keep out of that 120? And he said $28. Right? Yeah. And so this is like that. Whoa. And that's the portion of kind of where payroll should sit, right? Like, let's say it was $100, the payroll should sit like between 30-40%. We're trying to push it to 40, but everybody's freaking out. But when you think about, your rent is going to be like 6 to 10%, your Product cost is, 6 to 10%. Your overhead is 30%. You know, like.
Do you really think that most salon owners actually have a 10% rent right now in Vancouver?
Vancouver, I mean, some of them have 20. Some of them are paying 20% rent because their sales aren't high enough. Yeah. So now you add a 60% commission and a 20% rent. You know, and the average is 28% overheads. So that's where you're taking the money right out of your own pocket and putting it back into your business. Number one is the payroll. Number two is the support staff, right? So that's just having, like, we ran a $1.1 million company with 9 chairs, one full-time receptionist, 1 part-time receptionist, and 1 apprentice. And so, and I see companies that are doing like 600,000 in sales. They have double the square footage we have. They have like triple the support staff, and it doesn't crunch out. And for a while there, I wanted to bring on an operating partner, and I have all these like fun spreadsheets. That's what I offer in my course. They're really like easy to use. And I sat down with this potential partner, and we crunched the numbers up every way we could. And we just couldn't find enough money in the business to make it worth it. Like you were saying, Franco, is it worth it, right?
Yeah.
Like we could not like make it worth 2 of us being in that business. So, that's where the numbers come in handy, because that's where you can see, is it worth it? Because it's so funny. Sometimes the owners that I work with are not paying themselves. So they're working on the front desk. They're not paying themselves. And
I hear that a lot.
Yes.
Yeah. And I say, okay, when you work on the front desk, pay yourself as your front desk person like $15, $20 an hour. And they're like, I'm worth more than that.
You're not paying yourself more than that. I mean, now.
Well,
Right? Yeah.
Well, with everything that gets calculated, you've got a spreadsheet, and everything has certain categories. It seems like over the years, it's getting tighter and tighter and harder to turn over a profit. Where did we go wrong? Is it as an industry, or is it just in general, just with the economy and things keep getting added to the list?
Yeah, we went wrong. Where we went wrong, and I'm guilty of it, is we were cool hairstylists that rocked at doing hair. And we thought, I'm going to open a business and I'm going to do it better than my owner, and I'm going to treat people better, and I'm going to pay people better. And then we took 2 to 5 people, and started our business and offered them a higher pay. And then the next group did the same thing. And then the next group did the same thing. And now the expectation,
wow. I never thought of that.
The expectation of what people could get got higher. And then it became a standard. And now that it's a standard, everybody is terrified to pay lower because they think that the people will leave to somewhere else that will pay them higher.
Yeah.
And what I'm telling you is the reason people work for you is not only their paycheck. And I had my staff my staff were paid a lower commission than anybody around us. But guess what? Their T4s were higher than anyone around us. Yeah. And I had my staff come to me and say, hey, I was at a hair show and so-and-so hit me up and offered me like 50-50. And I said, okay, go back and ask them, ask the stylist in that salon, what's on their T4? Sure enough, they weren't bringing home 80K on their T4. So, they were bringing home 60K at 60%. My girls were bringing home 80K at 40%. So it's not, we need to re-educate. It's not about a percentage. It's about what are you taking home, right? And is that salon able to do marketing? Is the salon able to keep it beautiful so people are willing to pay a higher price point? Can they drive business to you? Like, these are all the things the salon can do only when they have some profit to play with, right? So yeah, it's really interesting.
I have a touchy question. I'm sure it's going to get touchy out there, but Franco's going to test this. Why is this not being taught in schools? In terms of how to run yourself or a business, or at least a little bit of the numbers, why is this not being taught in the salon schools in general?
Well, it's not really the salon school's job to, they're there to teach a technical skill. Are you talking about to the stylist? Okay, let's speak to,
at least to get an overview of what they need to look for, so that from day one, they got a foundation and they know exactly what to look for. Yeah.
Well, it's up to us to change, and then the school can teach the new standards, right? But the school can't say, you should only expect to get paid 40%, and then they go out and get offered 50 or 60.
Have you ever done the budget on how long it takes to, or how long and how expensive it is to take somebody out of school, train them, and get them profitable? What is your return on investment in each client or stylist? I think what Terenzio is saying is like, why are we not, and I totally agree with the question, and I understand, like, why is it that so many different industries, like let's for instance look at the restaurant industry again. When you go as a chef, right, you go to school to be a chef, and by the time you leave, without even your red seal or anything, you're taught your budgeting of how to budget a meal, let's say. Okay. We have hairstylists that come out of hair school, and they don't know how to budget on not only how much to charge, because every salon is so different, but they don't even know how to charge their own service. They don't know how to charge or how much they actually cost the salon. And I think that's what Terenzio is wondering, is like, how do we encourage the schools to educate more of a business side of things, and on, like, what's the most important thing for a stylist coming out of hair school? Building a clientele. So many other industries, a student comes out of out of a course being able to make money for the business right away. For us, they don't make money until 2-3 years down the road. And then once they start making money, they demand more money, because they're like, hey, they're entitled to like this worth that they just discovered when it was on the back of our business that encouraged them to build that business. Yeah.
So this is all just lack of knowing your numbers, right? Because you can take, so I have a cool sheet for that, is to figure out, how much the stylist burden is. And so you can just reduce their hours until they're meeting that burden, so you're not losing money on them. So I would say, like, within 3 months, you should be able to be breaking even on them.
Okay.
And I would say, I'm not sure if we need to start with the schools. I think we need to start with the owners because, the schools can teach one thing to the stylist, and then they're going to come experience something else in the salon. So I think we need to start with the owners, and the owners need to understand their businesses. The owners need to understand their business model, and then the schools can train that piece. I love that idea of, like, they need to understand that piece, but they need to be able to go into a salon that can support them on that. And so if the school is teaching them one thing and then they get into a salon and it's totally different, it's just not going to be that cohesive. I think the schools don't really know, like, how are they supposed to know what to teach? Because there's no really standard, right? It's so varied.
So I saw for the last 15 years, at least 20 salons a day on average. So I got to see a lot of what was going on. Why is it that a lot of salon owners do not look for training? Why do they not buy services? Because I've even brought up the question. We've had situations where we had some training that we were offering. We partnered up with some companies, and it just wasn't there. What's your opinion on that?
Oh, I wish I could answer that, because my business would boom. But I think it's just lack of awareness, right? It's lack of, like, when I started my company and I was working 6 days a week and I thought that I was doing awesome, I didn't think I needed help. Right? So, like, maybe they just don't realize that they need help, or it's not being presented to them in the right way. There's also, like, so many disconnects, because there's, a lot of times I'd run into Ro at West Coast and he'd tell me about a training and I'm like, what the heck? Like, I don't know about that training. How come I don't know about that? And maybe they, like, came in with my part-time receptionist and she didn't pass it on, or maybe the email got lost, or, I think there's just a lot of disconnects happening everywhere, that, we need to find a better way to deliver the product to the consumer, and build the desire up. Like, they need to have the desire. And for them to have the desire, they need to know that something's not working. And if they just our business is a really cash flow business, right? Like, some businesses, say a construction company, like, you're going to run out of cash because you're paying your employees maybe before you got paid. And then you're going to know you have a problem, and you're going to need to know your numbers to bridge the gap between, that money coming in. But we're such a cash heavy business that people pay when they come. So we kind of always have cash going through. So they don't know until they get slammed with a tax bill or an unexpected payroll bill. Like, they don't realize that they're not doing well. And then they may ignore that tax bill, right, from that last year. And so maybe it's like 3-4 years before this ton of bricks is catching up to them, and they're just having fun. So,
the government's getting very smart as to when it comes to looking at numbers. They've got averages. They can click a button now and find out what's going on. And it really sucks, because there's a lot of talented stylists out there that think that they're doing what they're supposed to be doing, and at the end of the year, like you said, they're stuck with this hefty bill, And just that fear factor. I don't know what it is about the tax people, but when they come and just thinking about them, you always wonder if they're going to come and find something.
When I go over the border, I feel like I'm always carrying something over. I'm like, okay, did we check everything? Like, I'm always like worried. Like you just, and I have the Nexus, and we're still like that. We're like, okay.
I know, you still feel like, oh, I'm innocent, I swear. Well, this is also a funny thing in our industry is, I teach classes, and in the class they're like, well, what if I don't declare my cash? And I'm like, in what other world would you put your hand up in a public place and say, I'm frauding the government? Yeah. And when is this acceptable, right? And they don't understand that they're shooting themselves in the foot, because right now, if you haven't been declaring all of your money and now you're looking for government support, well, it's maybe not going to be there for you. With my salon, we were able to purchase a property for ourselves, a residential property, because we claimed all the income, and that income allowed us to have a mortgage we wouldn't have been able to have had we been hiding the cash sales or, hiding it under. And with that house, that grew, and we were able to get a rental property. And with that grew, and, it's like domino effect.
I think that's where the whole, where a lot of stylists make mistakes by saying, no, I don't want my tax or my tips on my paychecks. And it's like they don't want it on their paycheck because they don't want to claim their tips. But then it's like, yeah, but at the year end, you're making more money. And then when you do get to the point that you want to invest, you're going to be able to get more because you're showing more money that you're earning, and you're saving more because we're all in the same boat. Cash is spent much easier than something that is just going straight into your savings. And, the banks have so many different systems set up that, your check, you can put a percentage of your check going into one account and another percentage of your checks going into another, and investments. They can't do that with your tips.
No.
And hairstylists we are not responsible enough to think of the future in that way, because like you said, we're such cash heavy that we're in the moment of what we have right now, not thinking what can we have later by, taking a little bit less to invest a little bit more. Yeah. And it's sad to see. And I think, on my side, being a chair rental salon and in the industry of chair rentals, I really see that happening with a lot of chair renters is, they have the most profitability being a chair renter, but yet they still have no savings and they still don't have money for the rainy days. And I constantly have the conversation with them. It's not how much you're earning, it's how much you're spending. Your bottles of wine every night, every day, because you're celebrating with your tips. That's not going to help you save for the future for the pandemics like this, and transition and be ready for it. Or even, we live in one of the most expensive cities in the world, and everyone complains about rent. But it's like, well, yeah, it sucks, and we're all in the same boat, but you're still earning quite a bit of money. It's just you're not saving and keeping that cash where it belongs. You're just spending it before you actually even earned it. My dad always said, it's never how much you make, it's how much you save. If you're spending 1,000 and you're making 500,
did he give you a cuff in the head too, like my dad?
No, one of these, la chapelle.
Well, he was a white man.
Yeah. Yeah, my dad had the art of eating.
And I think that's the bigger question is, why don't we teach this in school, real school, right? Like, it's just financial literacy, and it's, I was lucky enough to take an interest in it when I was like 16. I read The Wealthy Barber because it kind of tied in with our industry. And that's what got me interested in money and finance. And my parents didn't have money. They still don't. And I think, thankfully, all these books were written, and somehow I got interested in them. And years of reading all of this stuff is what got me to where I am today. And so they're just they're like laws of life, and if you know them, they work for you, and if you don't, they're working against you. They're still there, right? There's compounding interest. It's either compounding for you or it's compounding against you. So it's not like the laws and the rules don't go away. It's just whether they're working for you or against you. And so thankfully, your dad taught them, how to use them to work for you. Not everyone's so fortunate, and I wish that was taught in school. And that's what I'm here, that's why I'm here, is to teach people and try to make it fun, right? As fun as numbers can be, let's try to lighten it up and make it fun.
I think you've done a pretty damn good job making it fun for numbers, because, it's not fun. I hate, I have to be honest, the first day of that class was like one of the most depressing times of my career as a business owner. Like, it was I said a
An
punch in the
eye-opener.
face, but no, it was more than an eye opener, man. It was like, a grasp on the things that you just don't want to grasp on. And it was something that, it was shocking, but having that reality but the way we make it, fun out of it. And it's like, we're all in the same boat. And I think that's where I'm most frustrated about, our industry, is that even though we're all the same, we're all in the same boat, we still compete against each other and try to prove that we do it better and I do it this way because of that, like when we did the recent talk, Kaylee, in Langley at the
Beauty Council.
Yeah. You had so many different models of businesses to teach about. And it's like, how is that fair to not only you or the stylist or the students or the business owners to have that difficulty of deciding which model to go to when the percentage of profitability in all models is still the same, or still such a struggle to get to an actual profit. And it's just frustrating because, we're such passionate people. We give everything we do. It's grueling on our body. It's grueling on our mind. Your chat on your Salon network, I think it was Tina. She said it is people don't actually respect how much we take home in a mental status and physical. It took me to open up a salon for people to stop being like, oh, what are you going to do after this? Like, it's a hobby. And once I took on a huge lease and a huge debt, people started being like, oh, you're serious about this, hey? And it's like, like, are you kidding me right now? Like, you didn't see me struggle all these years trying to build my clientele, asking you to refer me clients, like, and I think that's where, like, it's the struggle. And it's so sad to see how many people go to hair school and don't do hair after. Mm-hmm. It's like, what is it, like 10% of students
or less.
come out or less. Like, I remember I had I think it was 40 students when I started. They broke off two different classes of 20 and 20. And out of all the 40 combined, I think there's only like 5 or 3 of us that are actually hairdressers. And I think I'm one of the only ones that actually opened up a salon and is running a salon still. And it's shocking because it's like they were so talented, but there's something that really doesn't connect. And I really, I love that we're able to have these conversations now that we have the downtime. And the ability to engage with each other. I have a question for you, Kaylee. You said that, you picked up the book, The Wealthy Barber. And I have a question. Would you have picked that? Do you think you would have picked that same book up if you weren't in the hairdressing game?
No.
Not right?
No. So that's thank you.
Like, you said you were lucky, but that's fortunate because we are all fortunate to be in this industry because we've worked so hard to make this work for us because it's not an industry that is given to you. It's not an industry that is easy to build a clientele. There's so many factors in this industry that affect why the client comes back or doesn't come back. Why stylists stay, why stylists don't, why business owners stay open and why business owners have to close or are forced to close. And it's crazy because we look at it as something that we're lucky for, but we're very fortunate to have each other in this time in need and outside of these times in needs. And I know I was very fortunate to meet you. And I hope that, doing these things will just grow our community and strengthen our community.
Yeah. I have to say, because you, Franco, you're a salon owner. Technically, you could be choosing the competitive route right now. You could be keeping this all for yourself. But here you are, you're wanting to share amongst all the other hairdressers and salon owners out there so that you can help, be that positive change. So I give you kudos. I give you a lot of credit for that. That's amazing.
There's a reason for that. It's because of I do feel fortunate because my whole life I struggled with education, with academics. I grew up in a household like you did, Terenzio, is, first generation. My dad worked in a mill. Hard work pays off. If you don't work hard, he's going to kick you in the ass. And like my dad was like, I provide what you need. Whatever you want, you have to work for. And at 16, I had a job. My first spring break, I had to work full time, and I was pissed off at 16, and I resented my dad so long. But it gave me the perspective, and it gave me the appreciation now. And I feel like because I grew up in such a loving family and such a supportive family, for me to go and open up a salon and not be so genuine and not be so candid and transparent, I wouldn't be living up to what my parents taught me. Like that fortune, not too many people have that fortune, you know, like when I opened up my salon and I started bringing in chair renters of all different types and all different specialties and stuff, it really opened my eyes that a lot of people have different stories and a lot of people have different pasts, but yet we're all in the same present and we're all trying to make a better future. But if we're not talking about the past and not trying to better the present to make a better future, we're all just going to be continuously running in that hamster wheel. So, you know, sometimes the hamster keeps running and then something shocks it to come out of that wheel. And for me, I want to provide a space of comfort and support. And, you know, Gary Vee is somebody that I watch a lot, Gary Vaynerchuk on YouTube, and he is all about just giving it away. And I respect the man for that, because he could contain it all in and make people pay for it, but yet he gives it away because his passion is to see somebody say, hey man, thank you so much for that help. And that's kind of like my approach with chair rental, is like, I really appreciated myself being a chair renter. So I saw that there was some good. And
did you have someone, a mentor, Franco, when you were getting started? Or did you have to learn it as a chair renter or as a stylist to learn the business side? Did you have someone, or did you have to learn it on your own?
So on a business side, I had to learn it somewhat on my own. As a young stylist, I started in Yaletown, and Yaletown is a very difficult market to build a clientele. I started there 6 months at a hairdressing school, and I had to sit and watch a lot because there was no clients walking in. There was 15 salons within a 2-block radius, and my prices were quite high because the salon owner, Charlene, she said, like, you're worth it, so just believe in it and you'll get there. So I didn't believe that I was worth it at that time. So I had to force myself to really look at myself and see why I'm worth it. And actually, one of my brothers were a big part of my mentorship, because I looked to them and they would ask me the questions like, okay, well, what makes you different than the people beside you? Why should somebody come to you? So I had a few stylist mentors like David Martino. He was my biggest mentor as a stylist. And I kind of did the whole, like,
you know what, I have to stop you there. I didn't know that he was your mentor, but when I was 15, I was passing him his perm papers.
Really? Really? David Martino?
That's so funny.
Yeah, that's where I skipped high school and went there. I was standing there and I was like, oh, he's
that
like.
Pink Lime, or was that a?
No, that was back in Metrotown.
That's Salon and Spa. Oh shoot!
Every time I see that guy, I feel like I gotta have a cigarette. You know, he's just got that look to him. You know?
He does. And
I always say, because he was like, I was just in awe of him, and
me too. The way he does things and the way he manipulates hair and his like everything about the way he does things, it's intoxicating.
That's funny. We had one of the same mentors there.
Yeah.
You know what, Franco, that's one of the things that I always respected in you too, is that giving side, the generous side. And you're always looking at, like, how can we collaborate? How can we like lift people up, bring them on board? And one kind of analogy I always like to use is, like, when people say, is your glass half empty or half full? I'm like, my freaking glass is overflowing. Like,
so
it's not like half of anything, right? And I think that's where, you know, people, there's like this fine line between hairstylists that are generous, but they're actually like giving the last drop in their own glass. And so there's like a fine line where you're full and overflowing, to you're just giving everything and you're empty. And I think that's an important distinction, where like generosity comes out of like overflowing. And that's, you know, what I've seen in you, like, you know, evolving and growing your business and everything. You're at that point where you can overflow onto others, and it's really cool.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
He's got that side of him, doesn't he?
Yeah. It's awesome. But I also see a lot of people that are just giving, and they're running dry, right? And you know, when you go on the airplane, what do they tell you? Put your mask on first.
Yeah.
And so some of the listeners here may need to do that first and then work on the generosity side. They kind of go in hand together, right? So, you know, you can always do something for the community. It's going to boost you up. That's going to fill you up at the same time, and work on filling that glass so it can be overflowing.
Well, and I feel like right now for hairstylists, like specifically new hairstylists and experienced hairstylists, is, you know, a sustainable clientele is something that we must start thinking of, because the business doesn't work if we're not all contributing. You know, Terenzio, we talked about this last time, is like, you know, in the end, both sides of the business want to get there. And if you're both not contributing, you're not going to get there. And, you know, yeah, you got to put your mask on first, but you also need to know what to do to get there, like to get that mask on, right? Like I feel like sometimes hairdressers come into it being like, okay, I got to do what I got to do and I'll support the salon. And then once they get to that point, they're like, okay, I am me. And I'm saying this out of like my experience. Like I did it. I started looking at my paycheck and I was like, well, I'm earning this, I'm earning this, I'm earning this. But I didn't realize that I wasn't bringing enough in to earn it. I was just doing the overflow until I left. And then I realized, oh, I need to start bringing in my own sustainable clientele.
Yeah.
So I really focus on my client or my stylist being like, okay, what are you bringing into the business? Because that is the sustainability of the business that you're providing, right? Mm-hmm. And it is true. Like I love that analogy. Like put your mask on first, but yet still think of others once you're established, because there is plenty of room for sharing.
You're not like putting the mask on all day long, right? It's like you put the mask on and then you help everybody.
Yeah, it's a 2-second thing, but everyone's like this.
It's not like me, I got my mask.
Yeah. Totally.
No, it's like put your mask on and then get to work, right? And that's exactly like in salons, we need to start working as a team. Like we are on the same team. If like Franco, you decide to do a promo, it's because you think it's going to grow your business. And then everyone's freaking out like, whoa, I'm losing money because it's a discount or a promo or whatever. And it's like, if the salon owner is doing something to make you lose money, they're losing it times 10. Yeah. So they would never do that. Good point. So if they're doing the promo, it's because they know maybe you're going to take a dip this month and next month it's going to come back. Like, I remember this in my salon, we did a buy two, get one free. And we couldn't give commission with that promo because it would just be a loss then. And there was just so much backlash from it. And so that's where like the owner needs to be educated, because now they need to educate their people and show them the numbers, right? Like this is what we're giving back to the client. And when you have your data too, we looked back and said, how many products do you normally sell to your client? And they were average like 1.5. And I'm like, now your client's buying 3 and they risk to rebuy those 3. So now you've doubled your retail sales. And maybe you'll not have commission this 1 month, right? And so if the owner doesn't understand how it works, they can't educate the people, and everybody starts doing this commission tug of war thing.
There are some great salon owners out there, and there was one time, I'm not going to name the salon, she started her own company, her own salon, worked her way up, built the careers of these amazing stylists, did everything by the book in terms of, financial commissions, spending a lot of money to send them away to educate them. And there's a salon owner down the block who scopes out these stylists and somehow connected with them and offered them like 20% more or something like that. And literally stole these stylists away from this hardworking salon owner who I also respected very much. And when I saw that, that's the thing about this industry. It's even if I wish there was a way to police it, but I guess that there really isn't.
There is a way. It's communication. I don't feel like the salon owners communicate enough. I've talked to a lot of salon owners that don't even do reference checks anymore, because I don't even do it. I don't reference check anymore, because the references that they give are their references that they know are going to give them good results. So if you're not allowed, I believe this is right, illegally you're not allowed to ask or go and reach out into the community that they don't offer references. So it's like you're only allowed to ask references that they're providing you.
Yeah, but you can specifically ask for like your last employer's reference.
Say stylists are coming and applying to you that are still in a salon that they want to leave the salon. It's very difficult for you to ask that salon, hey, I have your stylist here and they're looking to move from your salon.
Yeah, but that's where, I would be checking up on that. And there's been, would you rather be the Medina Cafe, right? I don't know if we're speaking only to Vancouverites, but the Medina Cafe that has the lineup out the door, or, the big business that can accommodate everyone. And sometimes you just I know people are just hiring without doing their due diligence because they're like, oh, you're breathing, you have a pulse, like I need people. But why not work with your team that's working and keep raising your prices and become more that Medina Cafe with the demand out the door? And yes, you need a screening process. We did a 3-step interview with reference checks, and just the process, like half of them drop off before the 3rd interview, right? So just putting them through, like every time, Franco, that I hired somebody outside of my process, it bit me in the butt. And you can ask, and even like my manager, we'd sit there and we'd be like, oh, they're so nice. Oh my gosh, they're so nice. We don't need to bother with that last interview. They're perfect. Oh my gosh, like, why did we do that? And then we'd say, we're never doing that again. We're sticking to our process. And then the next time, oh, we don't really need to do the personality like test, whatever. And yeah, and then, oh my gosh, no, you know what we did? We did a personality test, like these, those little quizzes to say
color,
strengths. Yeah. We did it, and it said that she was really aggressive and blunt, and we're like, no, she's so sweet. She must have answered the question wrong. This cannot be right. I kid you not, like 2 months later, she was like aggressing the team like no tomorrow. Her true colors were coming out. And we were like, why didn't we listen to our process?
Yeah.
So, you have to have a systemized way of doing things. And like, I started out as an artist, hairdresser too. Like, I rejected systems. When I graduated from hairdressing school, they made us wear like pantyhose under, like if we had, we were in the Okanagan, and if you wore sandals, you had to wear like old lady pantyhose under them. Because they didn't want you to get like hair in your nails or something. And I like rejected it so bad, because I'm like, I am not wearing those ugly things. It's hot out. And so the last day they told me, if you don't come to school with like panty, I think she said it like singularly somehow, then you're not graduating. And so I went there with one on.
Just
like, there you go. I don't like your system, right? So I was like the bratty stylist like anyone else, rejecting systems, until I realized in a salon how they support you. And they actually support you to be creative. They support you against yourself and your own emotions. And so having like a hiring process can protect you from making the wrong hire, even if it's just that one person you're putting through, and maybe they're the wrong person, and you stick with the team you have, right? Because the wrong hire just costs you so much money and time.
Is there a way to, so there's a lot of stylists, whether they're just starting from school now or whether they already have been working behind the chair, is there any way to give them insight so that they, moving forward, that they can do something about their business?
Yeah, it has to be relative to them, right? Like all of a sudden my business is so much more relative to all the salon owners, because they're like, crap, I don't know how we're going to recover financially from this. We need to have a plan. And so while I've been here for the past few years saying, hey, take my course, do this, it wasn't as relative as it is now. And so as the owner, you need to find a way to make it relative to your people to care about it. And that comes in more of a form of like, how much money do you want to take home this year? Let's break that down. And now we need to break it down. What does that mean per month? What does that mean per week, per day, per hour? And now we need to say, oh, well, you're currently only bringing in, enough to take home $20 an hour. This is what you need to do to take home 50. And when they can see that, now they're more interested in selling the treatment or selling the retail. So we need to like make it relevant to them, to where they are. We need to meet them where they are. We can't expect them to like, they're not thinking the way I'm thinking after all of the experience that I had as an owner, right? They're not thinking that way. So we need to go back to ourselves in that time and be like, what did I need to hear?
Have you ever had anybody who didn't make financial gain in everybody who you've worked with?
No, they've always
made it. Okay.
You either are coaching the person up or you're coaching them out, right? So
yeah, I get it. I like
again,
that. Yeah,
it's not a mean bad thing. We're coaching you up or we're coaching you out. And so now the person, I have had people, the timing was awful. The timing was just awful, that like you could never risk having a good paycheck because you're taking like 5 hours to do a color. I couldn't stand it. I was like walking by her like I just want to freak out, right? I'm like, what the hell is that taking so long? Like, move over, I'm going to do it for you. And so I just coached her every single day, and I put so much pressure on her that she ended up leaving. And she went to a salon where timing wasn't such a big issue, and it wasn't, that wasn't the vibe we had. We were like, we knew our market, and our market was corporate women was our like main focus. And so we knew corporate women couldn't come in and sit for 4 hours. So, so she, she moved, she was super happy somewhere else. But if I wouldn't have like stayed on her, I could have been annoyed for 10 years every time I walked by her. Right. And, so that's the leader's job, to coach your team up to what your expectations are. And if not, usually they self-select out because you're putting the pressure on them. So they either rise to the challenge or they self-select out. In extreme cases, you may have to free up their future. But most
Which
cases,
is fair. You have to be honest. Yeah.
And I always just try to look at things in the positive light. And that is, if it's not working for me, it's probably not working for you either. Right. Yep. And so like, how long are we both going to be in agony for? And once I let a girl go, who was super cool and awesome, but she didn't fit her culture. And when I let her go, she was shocked. And then she thanked me because she's like, I knew I didn't fit here either, but I probably would have stayed for years before I made the change.
hypothetically speaking, if we were to quickly role play here, let's say I come to you, what would it look like if you were to walk me through it?
We would do a consultation, and then I would prepare a proposal for you. And in the proposal, I would give you 3 different ways that we could work together. Obviously, like an entry way, and then a level where I'm like highly involved in your business. And then we would enter into a contract together. And the contracts are 6 months to a year, because it doesn't serve you or me to have like 5 talks, right? Like you're not going to get the results, and it's not a good investment of my time. The lowest way someone can work with me is to take my online program, and then they are part of the group calls. So that's the lowest investment. And that's really cool too, because all that stuff I would want them to do anyway, if I was to coach them. So they can do that instead of me delivering that information and them paying me one-on-one to deliver it. They can do a self-study. It's way more accessible for them. And then when we do coach one-on-one, we can dive right in. But we have to start with a financial review, because the advice so I'll give you an example. One of my friends, she's in the US, she called me and she's like, I'm going to change to your pay scale. She does strategies like team-based pay. And, we talked about that at the class, Franco, like all the different models. And I was like, whoa. And she's like, how do I do it? What do I do? And I'm like, whoa. Like, I can't tell you what to do when I don't understand your whole business model and what you're doing right now. And she's like, my payroll's too high, da. And I'm like, no. We got to take back the trade up. Send me all your numbers. I looked at all her numbers. She didn't have a payroll problem. Her payroll is at 40% sitting there nicely. She had a support staff problem. And so imagine I said, yeah, you should go to this commission model. She disrupts her whole culture. She upsets people because she's changing the way she pays, and it does 0 to budge the line on her profit. 0. If anything, she may lose people and lose money. So we were like, think of it as like you're bleeding, right? And you may be like hemorrhaging from the head. You've got lots of little cuts. And Franco, you said it earlier where, trying to like negotiate
nickel
on
and
that.
dime.
Nickel and dime. So like, okay, you're like fixing these cuts while you're hemorrhaging out of your head.
That's another good analogy.
Right? Like, yeah, we want to heal the cuts, but let's take care of the hemorrhage first. Yeah. And so the hemorrhage could be, and we never finished that, like the hemorrhage could be the color loss down the tube. It could be the support staff. It could be the payroll. And so we need to see what's happening there before I can make any recommendation. And so like anyone who just calls me off the cuff, like it's like if your client comes in and they're like, give me a makeover, and 0 about them.
I just want to ask you one thing that you just talked about is colorways. After we talked with the class that I took with you, that changed my perspective of what I was doing with my color tracking. And I introduced this system that it is working, but it's really, really difficult to educate the new stylists that are coming in on the way I do it. And I created a spreadsheet that goes gram to gram. So every time the stylists have their phones in their hands 98% of the day, other than when their scissors and combs are in their hands or their color brushes. So I said that what I've done is every color that you use, you send in the grams to my front desk. She puts it in their spreadsheet. We find out the number, and then that way we have a total number of cost at the end of the month, and it's been working amazing. The difficulty is that commission stylists constantly think that they're paying for color because they see the cost of the color. And it's such a big struggle for me because I'm always having to, like, in my interviews, I explain it to them. I have a breakdown on their contract, but yet it's a constant battle to come to that point of educating them. And I love the way you explained it to me. It's like going to the mechanic. When you go to the mechanic, you have parts and labor, but yet the stylists still just want to think that they actually are paying for this. And it's one of those things that I'm just like, how do we get past that? Like, yeah, I know a lot of salons that are like, oh, that's why I don't even deal with it. I just charge them extra percentage on their commissions and I don't track it. But then I'm like, but now you're costing 20% of your loss. Like, you're probably losing so much, and you have support staff.
So there's a new company out called Salon Scale. And you don't necessarily have to do Salon Scale, but this is the concept, it's the parts and service model. We need to teach the stylist how to bill for their time. And then they need to add the product on, and the product needs to ring under the house. So no more of this 10% charge. It's too confusing, and we're charging the wrong people the wrong things. So if we have a 10% charge off the top, and we have a color correction, and we have a bleach out, and that bleach out is like literally $4, and the color correction is like $50, now that bleach out's paying the color correction's color bill. And so it's just not ethical pricing. And and it's not that, like, any stylist watching this, it's not because your owner's a bad person. Like, they just don't know any other way to do it. And so, they've put in the product fee, which we did too. We had a back end product fee. And we tried our best to make it the right price, but you just don't know because it's so varying, right? And so until Salon Scale came along, where you actually have a digital Bluetooth scale and you weigh the color, and the color is already entered in with the price, and it goes into their phone with how much color that person's used. Now you have a real number to charge, and then you add that onto your hourly rate. And now there's no confusion about I'm paying for that color, because the client is paying for the color on their bill. The cool thing that they're doing right now is they're not charging. So you can start right now to get all of your stuff set up.
Okay.
It is a charge, yeah, but during COVID, they're not charging. And then they're also offering a free month. So, you can get on it and get used to it before and see, and then you can check, if you know your numbers well, you can check to see that you're earning a lot more than what you're paying. But yeah, you would factor that in. Definitely. You could factor that in. So they do teach to put a margin on your color, right? When you put it in there. But everybody I've seen on it has increased, because stylists just have, they're starting to be more careful with the color they use too, because they're seeing their client's bill rack up to $50-$60, and they're like, oh, I'm going to have to lower my rate now because I already quoted them. So they're being way more, that's really helping with wastage too. So they're being way more careful. And you can do the same concept without Salon Scale. Is you can just, they charge their hour and then the supplies, but now they're guessing at the price, which gets a bit sketchy. So then you have to do a really good education on what you have to have a really easy checklist so that they can find out what they're charging per bowl, or, but you're leaving a bit more gray area in there. So I really like the Salon Scale. I like it when things are black and white and clean and specific, and
especially in an industry that we're always in the gray.
Yeah, so this is a new way of charging, and it's like really ethical pricing, because the right person is paying for their own product. We're not just taking a guesstimate. It's nowhere near touching the staff, so they know exactly what commission to expect, because they're billing just for their hours. So I really like it. I think it's the best solution to this ongoing. We've been talking about this for years, right? Like smoke and mirrors, like this percentage, that percentage, whatever way you slice it, like the salon's got to pay for color. So I think this way's clean.
With the color, and then even the support staff, it's like those two things are the most expensive things that we have so much control over it, but yet we have no control over it because people don't respect that usage, and especially the support staff. The support staff is I believe that if you're using the support staff, you should be paying for it, just as the restaurants do. You have a setter, you have a hostess, you have your, everybody contributes out of their gross sales. Everybody throws in their tips, a percentage of their gross sales, into a bin. Everybody that's a support staff that doesn't technically make tips gets tipped out, and that becomes a part of their payment structure. Yeah, I really love that.
Yeah, this gets a bit messy because that's where your employees can say they're paying for costs, right? And that's against the law. That's against the label. So in theory, it's nice, but
tip out out of their tip out.
You could do a tip out, but now the tips are
tracked,
are the business responsibilities, and it changes everything. So it just gets a bit shady again, like gray. But yeah, I can't remember exactly, but it does put a higher burden on the business when you start to control. Those are called control tips. Instead of direct tips, and it changes the category that they go under.
Okay.
So there's just a lot of we just want to keep it clean, but there are ways to go around it. Like our top stylist, we offered bonuses. So we just, instead of a bonus, they got an apprentice. So, there's always creative ways to structure it that are not against the law. But we do have to be careful, because there's a lot of laws out there that,
and it's not very clear. The law sometimes isn't so clear too. You got to read it 100 times, and you got to get somebody else to read it for you. So, no, you're right. You got to stay away from the gray.
Yeah, you can always call the labor standard, but at the end of the day, if you get audited, the person's reading by the book, and they don't care what your backstory is. So you better just keep it all above board and keep it really clean. Yeah. So we covered a lot of different.
Yeah, we went all around. I love it. I hope people will comment and let us know if we want to have more of this conversation.
How can people find you?
Well, my Facebook is Kaylee Auger, CAYLEEAUGE. And you can find me on Instagram. Email is success@KayleeAuger. So I'll put it in the links. But I've got a free webinar on Mondays right now, talking about a little bit deeper about the cash flow plan. So they can join me on my free webinar. It's at 11:30 on Mondays. It's evolving every week, right? We're adding in, we're finding out, what are people's needs and trying to speak to those. So yeah, reach out and let us know what your needs are, and we can maybe speak to that. Or maybe we already have some resources that I probably have a spreadsheet for it that I can send you.
You took the words right out of my mouth.
Kaylee O'Shea from Love Your Business.
Yes.
It was such a pleasure to have you on. We absolutely love your energy, and we hope to have you again.
Thank you, guys. I love your initiative. I love these types of conversations. They're really fun. So I'll look forward to the next time.
If anybody has any questions on anything that we talked about, put them in the comments below, and we will make sure to respond and answer some more questions.